6 hours of martial law back in December, and what's followed has been 6 months of political chaos. And it's 6 months to the day today the Koreans are heading to the polls. The mood really varies between the different supporter bases. Lee Jae-myung, he's the representative that's been put forward by the Democratic Party. He's something like 10% ahead in the polls at the moment. And so his supporters seem buoyant, they seem happy, they seem confident that he's going to win. But there's also been really what feels like an increasing level of polarization in the electorate. And there's a very strong group of people that are backing Kim Moon-soo. He's the candidate that's been put forward by the People Power Party. That's the party that Yoon Suk Yeol was also leading, was also a representative of when he imposed martial law. So that mood really differing between those two supporter bases. We've had some people excited that they think their candidate is going to win. We've had others really saying they're essentially feeling depressed, to quote one supporter we were speaking to yesterday, that they think that Lee is going to be taking on that spot. And it really points to a broader issue within Korean politics that has been exposed by the imposition of martial law, that being the increasing level of polarization and the entrenched beliefs of those two sides, and really the limited level of a common ground between the two of them. So difficult times for the president, whoever is elected, moving forward.
It sounds, Jan, like this vote for the next president is nearly being seen more as a referendum on that martial law question.
That's right. I think some people, even that we've been speaking to, have been a little bit disappointed that bread and butter issues, the economy, hasn't featured more heavily in the campaign so far. Let's not forget it was a snap campaign, and so there hasn't been that much time for the candidates to get their word and their message out there. Add on top of that the fact that Kim, who was the People Power representative, he was almost ousted by his own party, replaced by someone else, and then brought back in right after that. So he really hasn't had that much time to set out his own shop. But really, it feels like the main dividing line has been on this imposition of martial law. And you couldn't really have two candidates that are further apart when it comes to that. Lee, well, he was scaling the walls of Parliament as a National Assembly member to go and vote against the imposition of martial law, live streaming himself and calling on people in Korea, in Seoul, to stand up for their democratic rights and go and protest outside the Parliament. Kim, on the other hand, was a Labour minister in the outgoing administration, the former administration, and he's really struggled to distance himself from the imposition of martial law, coming out quite late in the campaign with what felt like a sort of haphazard and wasn't quite a strong condemnation of that. So this really is the big dividing line between those two sides, and it's set to determine the future not only of Korea's democracy, but also of Korea's future, in a sense, moving forward.
Indeed. The new president, if I understand it correctly, will be inaugurated as soon as results are announced. As you say, whichever man it will be immediate challenges ahead, both at home and abroad. How will they measure up when it comes to that?
That's right. It really is a difficult playing field, I suppose, moving forward. Domestically, you have these large polarized groups that really have grown more aggressive towards each other. We've seen violence, the storming of certain buildings in the last few months, protests and counter-protests, all relating to the imposition of martial law. And then let's not forget that the international stage has also become increasingly unstable, increasingly fractured as well. Seoul and South Korea is really normally seen as a very strong ally of the United States in the region here. But of course, Trump and the administrators in Washington have also slapped tariffs on people, on Korea itself here, although both candidates have said they're willing to continue the strength of that relationship moving forward. And then, of course, let's not forget that you have China in the region that has been testing the boundaries to which it can push Korea in the waters around Korea, the waters that separate China and Korea. And of course, North Korea, just north of the border, also an ever-present threat and an ever-present thing that these politicians here need really to be aware of. So the new president, whoever that will be, when they're inaugurated tomorrow, really is going to have their plate full. They're going to have a lot of domestic issues to deal with. They're going to have to try and bring together the country around themselves and around a common shared sense of identity moving forward in this Korean democracy. And they're also going to have to manage these very delicate relationships on the